What's up? It's me, your pal, Peace Bud. Today I would like to introduce to you the future of renewable energy sources for America and the planet. My friend, the cannabis plant. A great deal of propaganda has been created to slander this totally beneficial plant. But did you know that the evolution of human society has depended on this wonderful plant for centuries? Cannabis hemp has been used throughout history to make fabrics, rope, and paper. It is completely renewable, easy to propagate, and it produces high yields in almost any environment. Cannabis is the only plant that can support the energy needs of our economy. Did you know that our cars were originally intended to run on a cannabis-based fuel source called ethanol? Henry Ford's original Model T was built from plastics made out of hemp. The vehicle was to run on a hemp-based ethanol fuel, which was grown on Mr. Ford's property. He figured hemp would completely take care of his newly emerging automobile industry. But as the Industrial Revolution grew, and new chemicals and mechanical processes became possible, other industries stepped in to dictate what the new resource for the 20th century would be. The Rockefellers worked hard to establish relationships with Middle Eastern oil monarchies, smudging the dream of ethanol. Combined with the DuPont's new chemical processes to create plastics from oil, paper from wood, and a new type of synthetic rope called nylon. And in 1938, by request of big oil companies such as the DuPonts and the Rockefellers, cannabis was outlawed in the United States. We now live in the outcome of the Industrial Revolution, and our machines have become reliant on oil. Now we have to reconfigure our world, or slip into darkness. Oil is an economy based on death. Its pursuit has caused nothing but wars and inequities, for the oil industry harvests the ancient remains of dead animals, while a fuel economy based on growing cannabis is one of life and creation. The situation our world is in because of oil is absurd. Join me in the new revolution of the 21st century. Legalize cannabis and create a new era of peace, prosperity, and renewable energy.
Hemp is an annual fibrous plant that is grown for many uses and has been grown in our history for up to 8,000 years. Marijuana is either the recreational use or the medicinal use of the psychoactive compounds within the cannabis plant. Industrial hemp, you get a lot of the strains that don't have the psychoactive compound THC in it at all, so absolutely useless as a drug. The history of hemp has been traced back to China to 6,000 to 8,000 BC, and it is thought of to be the first plant cultivated by man for fiber uses. From there, it can be traced in nearly every culture and every civilization, being used from everything for sails in all the ships that sailed the earth, all the ropes. The first Bible was printed on hemp paper. It was used in the building of the pyramids. Hemp moved across also through the sailing ships into the American colonies and was actually grown by George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. And people don't realize that the first drafts of the American Declaration of Independence were actually written on hemp paper. You could pay your taxes with hemp as well. Hemp is prized for its multitude of uses, and also Britain wouldn't have ruled the seas so much if they didn't have access to Russian hemp. Throughout history, hemp had a very big role in industry here, but towards the sort of beginning of the 20th century, it started losing a little bit of market share to cotton, because the hemp fiber it's quite hard to get off the stalk. In 1930, a man called Schlichten invented a new machine to take the fiber off hemp while it was green. The Hearst Corporation bought up the rights for this machine. They then squashed the design for this machine and ran a campaign with DuPont, who had just invented nylon. and a lot of the petrochemical industries as well, to get hemp banned because it was now competition. The history is quite involved, but when you look at the facts, there's no ways that this plant is criminalized because a part of it can be abused. It is because of its threat to major corporations and big business. When America banned hemp and put a lot of pressure on the rest of the Western world to follow suit, there was only one Western country that decided that they would continue growing, and that was France. The rest of the countries that have traditionally grown hemp have been the communist countries. You find a lot in Serbia, Hungary, obviously China being the world leader, they're growing by far the most. Since the 1990s, there's been a resurgence in the West, and Canada was the first major country that changed, and now they're growing 50,000 hectares at the moment. The UK has now got licenses, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Australia, New Zealand is looking at changing laws. The major use that most people know these days is for the textiles. The fiber of the hemp is 3 times the tensile strength of cotton, and it's a hollow fiber, so it's a lot more breathable. Wearing hemp, it's comfortable, it's breathable, it's the classic saying is it wears in, not out. The other uses that are coming up in France, they're developing the building industry. What they do is chip up the stalk and mix it with lime, and you actually get this, which is a hemp brick. The other product that's really big in building is the chipboard, which is lighter than wood, it's better insulating than wood, and obviously there are no trees going into it again, and it's on a sustainable basis. Big opportunity for Africa is the nutrition side of hemp. Hemp is the optimum ratio of omega fatty acids for our body, and the protein in it is globulin edestin. And globulin edestin is a very absorbable protein. Your body can digest it a lot easier than it can even the soy protein. So specifically for nutrition blocking diseases such as TB, it makes a very good porridge or supplement on a daily basis for people who are sick. Besides that, the oil can also be used to make fuel. It makes a really good biodiesel. Another very important use for hemp is paper. It makes up to 4 times as much pulp per acre as trees, and obviously on a sustainable basis, you're getting, after 4 to 6 months, a yield of pulp instead of waiting for 6 to 8 years or even longer for trees. There's now hemp plastic as well, this is amazing. This is coming out of Australia now. People don't realize that up to 50% of our oil goes into making plastics. That even if we stop driving cars today, it wouldn't sort out our fuel problem and our oil problem in the Middle East. So this technology is really exciting. Environmentally, hemp is a very positive plant because it grows very fast, so it absorbs a lot of carbon, which, as we all know, this is a big issue with global warming. It also cuts down your use of pesticides and other chemicals in the farming practice, so it will stop your pollution of rivers and land and all that. A Canadian company has worked out, they've grew an acre of cotton and an acre of hemp and tested the inputs of water and pesticides. And a hemp t-shirt uses 300 liters less water and 1.5 cups of pesticides less than cotton. So that is amazing. That you can actually see the effects immediately on planet saving and your costs reduction for a farmer to grow hemp versus cotton. In South Africa, currently the situation is that hemp is only grown for research purposes. It is controlled by the Department of Health, and the permit is, at the moment, currently a permit to grow a narcotic drug. It is a situation where our government is yet to recognize the difference between industrial hemp and medicinal marijuana or dacha on that side. We as Emporium see our role as very much as an educational tool at the moment. Our tagline is innovate, educate, cultivate. Innovate, we're trying to show as many different products as possible to show the versatility of the plant. The educate comes in through our exposure, through what we've created here in our space, where people walk in thinking hemp's about one thing only, and that is generally smoking. They walk in here and they learn that it's about so much more, that is something that's, doesn't even come into what what we do here. This is about hemp as a building material, as a food, as a job creator, as a nice, comfortable item to wear. Obviously, the cultivate that comes in at the end is somewhere where we're aiming towards. We want to be hemp farmers, and we want to be creating jobs, we want to be building houses, and we want to be feeding people. That is our ultimate aim. I feel there's a big future for hemp in South Africa in the way that the solutions it offers are so much more needed here than they are in any of the first world countries. Here we need people to have jobs, we need people to be growing organically and looking after our soil, we need people to have houses that are built nicely. They aren't the cement brick house with a tin roof that are absolutely terrible to live in. And then nutrition for people to feed themselves properly and to actually feel full and to have a healthy lifestyle. So it can offer a lot on that side. So yes, the future is bright if we can just get it through the system and get it to a place where a farmer can actually grow hemp as an industrial crop. I believe the hemp plant has an energy, especially because there are so many people across the planet that are fighting for its liberation. There are people who are really putting a lot of energy in educating and showing people the potential for this plant, and it is a plant that has been done an injustice. So wearing it has spirit as well, because you feel in your spirit that you're making a difference, not only in showing to yourself or to your friends or educating people as to what you're wearing, but also in the environmental side, in the consciousness that you have saved pesticides, you have saved water as well. Usually you'll find people who are more spiritual will seek out a product such as hemp because they are now thinking, and consciousness is basically thinking and becoming aware, and very much aware of what you put on your body or what you put in your body and what you do to your immediate surroundings and the planet as a whole.
This is a Lotus Eco Elise. It's a high-performance sports car, and not the sort of thing you automatically associate with life in the countryside, but that's exactly where some of the raw materials used to build it have been grown.
The magic ingredient is hemp. It's in the body panels, it's in the rear spoiler, and it's also been used in the manufacture of the seats. But hemp is from the same plant family as cannabis.
And because of its association with the drug, it was banned in England until 1993. But you can't get drugs from hemp, and so now it's back in our fields and being grown as a crop. Lee, using hemp matting in the panelling of cars seems a pretty unusual thing to do. Where did that idea come from?
Well, basically what we wanted to do here is actually reduce the carbon footprint of the car. We used hemp instead of fiberglass because basically it's grown locally to us, and it's a strong material. And as you can see, the effect that it's had on the panels, it's a beautiful material to look at. But what we've done with the Eco Elise is to actually look at the production stage. So looking at all the materials that go into the build of the car, which normally get forgotten about, really. And obviously the car is built locally, it's built in the countryside, and we wanted to use local materials as well to actually put into the manufacture, which actually absorbs CO2 as well.
So, as well as in motor cars, what else can hemp be used for? Well, this shirt and these trousers are pure hemp. Even these boots are partly made of hemp. What do you think?
With demand for hemp increasing, farmer Dan Squire has taken advantage of the new opportunities hemp offers.
How many acres of hemp do you grow?
We've got about 350 acres this year. It's about the 9th year that we've been growing it, and we've got great confidence in the crop as a change crop.
And how does it stack up with the profitability in comparison to conventional arable crops?
Well, I believe, and I know it's a lot better gross margin than peas and beans, very comparable with really good rape crops, and will even stand on its own feet with cereals.
And how easy is it to grow?
Well, you sow it in early May, late April, into a clean seed bed. Bit of fertiliser, probably half what is required for wheat or rape, and no chemicals from that day onwards until it's harvested.
One company in Suffolk have invested in new equipment to manage the new hemp crop. Hempcore run the world's largest hemp processing factory, turning the raw hemp bales into fibres.
So this is our technical fibre. Yeah, we take the coarse material and we refine it. We open up the fibres, we clean it up, and this is used in the automotive industry to make things like this, car door panels. And then it can also be used to make insulation materials, and this is insulation material made from hemp fibre. And it has similar thermal properties to the normal products on the market.
And what's in this bag over there?
This is shiv. This is the woody core of the plant. This is used as animal bedding, and when mixed with lime is used in the construction industry.
Hemp in buildings could be the future. A mix of lime and hemp packed around a timber frame can quickly be used to form a wall with high thermal properties. How quickly can you use it? Is it easy to use? Is it versatile?
Yep, it's very simple to use, very versatile. It takes about 2 or 3 hours to learn how to use it. You don't need any high levels of skill, and it's possible to build walls very quickly. The section we're going to see here has just taken a few minutes, but you'd be talking about building a wall full height from ground to roof if you could mix it fast enough in a day, and you get a house built in maybe 2 or 3 days at the moment.
In the moment of truth. Well, there we have it. And how does it compare in the cost?
Well, a wall like this, 300 millimetres thick, is pretty identical in cost to a brick and block wall. So 300 millimetres like this gives you a wall which creates a building that needs virtually no heating or cooling.
And some people are already taking advantage of that. This distribution centre, built by Adnams Brewers in Suffolk, is constructed mainly from hemp and chalk blocks. The building needs no heating and maintains a constant temperature of 13 degrees.
How integral are the hemp blocks in that energy-saving system?
Well, I think they're very important. Not only do they come with a very high energy efficiency rating, there's also 150 tonnes of carbon locked up in the hemp within those blocks. Now, if we'd built this building out of a standard concrete block, we would have emitted something like 600 tonnes of carbon to the atmosphere. So you can see that by using the hemp, that we've not only got a great product in terms of the thermal value, we're actually locking carbon away from the atmosphere.
Hemp could be the all-singing, all-dancing, carbon-neutral material of the future. Soon we could use it to help grow our clothes, our cars, and even our homes.
A lot of other countries, I think 30-some different countries in the world grow industrial hemp. But we're the primary market for almost every country in the world. The United States, we're the market. And so what an opportunity we're giving away, we're throwing away by not being a part of this industry. And think of how rapidly it could grow if we actually started producing this stuff here and developed some of those value-added businesses that go along with it, that will take that fiber and turn it into composites, that will take that fiber and turn it into high-quality clothing, into papers, into ropes, into what have you, that will take those oil seeds and turn it into some of those really high-end cosmetics that that the industry is so looking for, where you've got enormous potential profit. So all of that happens as a system. I mean, just for us to grow it isn't enough. You have to build that infrastructure, and that infrastructure is going to take time to do, and you've got to have all parts of it going. And so, I mean, we really ought to be in this business.
As an independent company, I'm proud to say that our sales are in the range of 100 million. Our hemp plus granola is a significant part of our business.
I think if Americans ate more hemp, it would help correct the imbalance of essential fatty acids in their diet. I think we'd see a reduction of inflammatory diseases. I think this would be a benefit at lowering heart attack risk, cancer risks. I think it can also do a lot for mental emotional health, because the omega-3s are really necessary for proper brain function.
With the profitability of grown industrial hemp, we may be netting $2 to $250 per acre of actual profit, where if we're looking at other crops, we wouldn't be looking at that profit.
The number of vehicles domestically in the United States that have natural fiber components in them is approximately 2.2 million since we launched operations in October '99. Our projections with contracted business that we have going forward, that we will be in approximately 5 million vehicles by the end of the year 2006.
French Meadow Bakery has grown. Our sales are in excess of $7 million. Our healthy hemp bread is probably our number 3 selling bread. I believe it's one of the best-selling hemp food products in the country. We can't keep it in stock at our cafe in Minneapolis. Individuals come in buying 6 loaves at a time.
Earthly Body's sales in 2003 were in excess of several $1 million. We've grown just last year alone about 25%, which is a pretty nice jump for us.
Overall sales for our hemp candle line at Way Out Wax are roughly $150,000 a year right now. That is up from $5,000 in the first year we introduced them in 1994. We definitely see a positive growth trend in the hemp candle line.
Let me tell you what drives me about promoting industrial hemp, making it another alternative for farmers to grow it here in North Dakota. It's economics. It's bottom line. I mean, my training is in economics. I spent my whole life farming. I understand that you can grow all different kinds of things, but in the end, at the end of the year, if you can't make money on it, it doesn't make much sense, because I can't stay in business if I can't make money on it. And industrial hemp is one more commodity that hopefully can help me make some money on my farm. You've got different places where this commodity can be used, whether it's the oil commodity, whether it's the fiber that can be used for composites in automobile industry, whether it's for clothing, There are innumerable uses. But again, the point here is that none of those uses are really going to develop to any great degree until we've got the ability to grow this commodity and that we're able to develop the processing industry that goes with it. It's an enormous challenge.
David Monson grows wheat, barley, and canola on 700 acres in Osnabrück, a little town in the northeast corner of North Dakota. But wheat has sometimes been a problem crop for farmers in recent years.
We were hit with a disease in our wheat called Fusarium head blight. When we got to harvest time, there was nothing in the heads, and we had never seen anything that bad before.
So Monson, who's also a Republican state legislator, wanted to help farmers find a way to switch to another cash crop. He happened to read about hemp.
It was talking about industrial hemp legislation being introduced in other states, including Minnesota and many other states, and it talked about how Canada was raising it now and how much profit they could make on it and all that.
One reason for the interest is that hemp is so versatile. There are more than 25,000 uses, ranging from food to fiber. It was part of our everyday lives for centuries. American farmers, including George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, grew hemp.
And in fact, in North Dakota, remnants of that activity are still evident today in what is called ditchweed today, which is nothing more than wildly growing industrial hemp. It was encouraged as part of the war effort because it was a strategic material.
Over the decades, hemp was looked at in a different way. The leaves are similar to the marijuana plant, so they're often confused. Both plants are from the species Cannabis, but hemp contains virtually no THC, the active ingredient in pot. Still, it became illegal in the 1930s, only to have the ban relaxed briefly for military use during World War II. In the 1970s, it became classified as a restricted drug. But that didn't deter Dave Monson.
I said, if they can do it in Canada and England and Germany, all over the world, we should be able to do it too.
Just 25 miles over the border, Canada passed a law in 1997, becoming one of more than 24 countries allowing the licensed growing of industrial hemp. Manitoba produces nearly half of the 12,000 acres planted in Canada.
Well, you can see here, Pat, I'll knock these seeds out into my hand.
Andrea Herman is with the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, an umbrella organization for the industry. She says her country's interest in the crop began in 1992, when a group in Ontario looked at successful cultivation efforts in Europe.
And some producers there and some governmental officials decided that this was an opportunity for Canada to recognize an industrial crop that could be grown on an agricultural basis, adding to crop rotation and crop diversity, and also product diversity.
How tall will they get when they're ready to harvest?
6 to 8 feet tall.
Kent Otway is one of those Canadian farmers to venture into hemp production.
Now, why did you want to start growing it?
Well, I guess we like to try new things a bit, and it was interesting, and the price was fairly decent for the product.
Farmers like Kent operate under strict government regulations that include a criminal background check before receiving a license. Currently, Canada grows 12,000 acres of hemp. You can see many plants right along the highways. It's an easy crop to grow, especially on land that's also good for wheat and corn. The crop is harvested at different times for different products. Seed products are picked by combine.
Most of the hemp grown in Canada is grown for hemp seed, which is then processed into oil and meal. The two largest plants are located right here in Manitoba.
Hemp Oil Canada's facility may be small, but it is North America's largest producer and processor of hemp, both fiber and oil for things like food, clothing, soaps, and paints.
We contract with farmers to produce hemp seed for us across the Canadian prairies. We then bring it in and process it here in St. Agathe into hemp seed oil, hulled hemp seed or shelled hemp seed.
Some of the products, like the ones produced by Hemp Oil Canada, can be found in a variety of stores and specialty shops, like Hemp in the Heartland in Sacramento, California.
Kyle, it's amazing all of the things that use hemp.
Definitely. We carry clothing, food, paper products. Hemp yields something like 4 times more paper per acre than wood pulp, so it's an incredible alternative.
The U.S. is one of the biggest markets for hemp items. Dave Monson hopes one day to supply the crop. In 1999, North Dakota became the first state to legalize hemp cultivation. And Monson was the first to receive a state license. He still can't grow it, however, because the law also requires federal approval. So far, that hasn't happened, which means North Dakota farmers will keep up efforts to someday get the crop into their fields.
Hemp has played a role in world commerce for thousands of years. The plant was originally cultivated in China to make rope, as well as fish nets. Hemp was widely grown for use in paper making early in America's history. In fact, the Declaration of Independence is written on parchment containing hemp fibers. Still to come on America's Heartland, we'll travel to Montana to meet a grower who went from the farm field to the halls of the U.S. Senate. And farmers in New Jersey take a hands-on approach to help feed the hungry.
It's hard to be a farmer or a rancher pretty much anywhere in the Heartland without being involved in politics, at least at the local level. There's land and businesses to protect and interests to advance. As you've seen many times on this show, farmers and ranchers tend to have strong opinions. And you're about to meet a third-generation Montana farmer whose views and political skills drove him straight to Washington, D.C. as a United States Senator. But Jason learned that after just the first few months in office, he's still a farmer, through and through.
I'm here to bring awareness to the fact that this country needs to legalize hemp farming. It's long overdue and we're sick of waiting. We got to let the people know that it's time to plant hemp. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to plant hemp on the DEA front lawn.
Nice. Oh, they do bend. They do bend, do they?
No, that's all right.
Yeah, we need U.S. farmers to grow industrial hemp. It's time. Yeah, it's time. I want to make my products in the United States. It's not fair. I got to buy my textiles in China. This makes no sense.
Yeah, the American farmers being shut out, Chinese, Canadian, European, everyone except for Americans. These guys are keeping it for the bureaucratic money funding flow. It's just like it's just a waste of energy, waste of everyone's time and money.
Getting them in
let
there.
Farmers grow hemp.
Yeah, American
farmers just planted hemp.
Yeah, American farmers are growing hemp on the lawn at the DEA headquarters.
We're kind of all in charge.
Yeah.
I'm here to try to get the DEA to lighten up and let us grow industrial hemp. We're in Vermont, and the law has been passed already in Vermont that we can grow industrial hemp, but people are afraid of the DEA coming in and plowing in the fields that we plant. So that's the reason we're here, is to try to get the DEA to recognize that there are states that have already passed these laws and at least let hemp be grown in those states.
My name is Wayne Hauge. I'm from North Dakota. I'm a farmer. I'm a fourth-generation farmer. For the last 10 years, I've had an interest in growing industrial hemp. It would be a good rotational crop.
Oh, you did?
There are, just within the last 2 years, a tremendous reduction in the price of other grains. It would be nice to have a profitable alternative crop to grow.
Yeah, go down to
every bit of sod we're popping up, we're putting back in perfect.
That's right. It's going right back in.
Pushed in there.
Yeah, no, that's
in support of
we're
this
planting
movement.
some hemp seeds. We need to have a distinction between industrial hemp and marijuana. This is simply a crop. This is not a drug.
Yeah, what's your chance, Cesar?
And I'd simply like to have the ability to plant a rotational crop.
Hemp is closed.
And how, yeah.
How is our leadership unable to distinguish between...
What does RCMP have on our...
Take your best step off. Put the shovel down.
Put the shovel down.
You guys step back. Step back. I don't want you guys to get hurt. Put your shovel. If anybody get hurt, don't make your point about getting hurt.
Or not to get hurt.
What about my shovel? Have a seat on the curb.
Sweet Adam.
On your back, sir.
I want to buy hemp as food. I want to buy hemp as clothes. I want people working. Let the farmers work. Legalize hemp.
That's right. Legalize hemp. Legalize hemp. Legalize hemp. Legalize hemp.
Legalize hemp. Let people farm.
I'm going to go right out here. Right here. Yeah, we need you.
Legalize hemp. Let farmers farm.
We got enough cars for people? See what you got. I'll stand by here.
Hey, they're taking everything from our car.
American farmers need hemp.
We get to sell hemp.
It's a crop rotation.
Would be in Europe or China.
Heal our fields.
We're the only industrial country in the world that does not grow this plant. Every product derived from this plant is distributed freely and legally throughout this country, but we cannot grow the plant. We're here to bring awareness to that stupid fact.
And if we have to keep getting arrested over and over again, we will.
I push quick, get them in, and then we're going to move, and I got it.
Freedom here. We need liberty. We need to be able to grow hemp.
The Environmentally Sustainable Alternative. Part 1. Hemp History 101.
Long ago, when these ancient Grecian temples were new, hemp was already old in the service of mankind. For thousands of years even then, this plant had been grown for cordage and coarse cloth in China and elsewhere in the East. For centuries prior to about 1850, all the ships that sailed the western seas were rigged with hempen rope and sails. For the sailor, no less than the hangman, hemp was indispensable. The Conestoga wagons and prairie schooners of pioneer days were covered with hempen canvas. Indeed, the very word canvas comes from the Arabic word for hemp.
In 1813, the Americans took a trip across the Lake Ontario to steal a lot of hemp. First they captured old Fort York, the royal ship burned down. Then they went to harbor front to see what could be found. They filled 14 ships with hemp sails and hemp rope, burning all the rest before they torched the town down. The Brits got so mad, seeing Parliament a-burning. Revenge! They cried and burned the White House down.
In the old days, breaking was done by hand, one of the hardest jobs known to man. Now the power breaker makes quick work of it.
The hemp industry can now recover 95% of the fibers, rather than the 25 to 50% as before.
In 1935, Henry Ford's desire to unite industry and agriculture would lead to the formation of the Farm Commercial Council. The Commercial model would use the country's farmers to supply the industrial needs of the 20th century. The expanded markets would bolster the dismal state of affairs on American farms and ease the emerging problems of petrochemical pollution. Ford and the Council would find support in the like-minded genius of Thomas Edison and plant geneticists George Washington Carver and Luther Burbank. In 1938, advances in hemp decortication equipment prompted Popular Mechanics magazine to call hemp the billion-dollar crop with 25,000 uses. The development sprouted a new kind of hemp industry in Minnesota, one poised to exploit the cellulose-rich herds for use in the plastics industry. In 1916, the Department of Agriculture published Bulletin 404, written by Leicester Dewey and plant and paper chemist Jason Merrill. Printed on hemp paper, the bulletin warned that forests cannot withstand the demands and praised the paper potential of hemp. Henry Ford had a vision of growing automobiles from the soil. At the company's River Rouge plant, researchers used annual crops to develop biodegradable car parts, and in 1941 unveiled a car whose plastic body was made entirely from hemp, wheat straw, and sisal. The bioplastic withstood blows 10 times as great as steel without denting, and its reduced weight promised better fuel efficiency.
1937 was my first summer to spend with my grandfather. And at that time, they grew hemp to make rope. And him and the next farmer had a machine, and you made your threads, okay? After you had it on the spools, then you would go and make rope. But then in the latter years of the Depression, they banned it. It was banned by the government of North America. It came at just when the Depression was right at its worst, in this area, about 1937. The law was passed that it was illegal to have hemp seed. It was illegal to have it, and it was illegal to grow it. It was actually illegal to have hemp seed in your possession. It was stopped being used by Mackenzie King. And I would listen to the old timers, my Uncle Bill and my grandpa and Fred Wagner and those people talking. Like, they really felt that they had been hard done by.
In 1942, in a full reversal, the U.S. Department of Agriculture presented the movie Hemp for Victory, encouraging farmers to grow hemp.
The hemp industry was in decline when the United States entered World War II. With the nation's supply of manila hemp and jute curtailed by the Japanese invasion of the Philippines, the government turned to the farmers for help. The war hemp industries built 42 mills throughout the Midwest. Hemp production rose dramatically as the nation's farmers produced 60 million pounds of fiber for the country's supply of cordage.
But then they banned it. It was banned by the government of North America.
In the waning years of the 20th century, the Earth's most useful crop re-emerged on farms the world over. For more than half a century, hemp was a crop in exile.
To bring into the world 200 million new people a year, that nearly equal to the population of the United States, and to not want to bring in a source of shelter and clothing and food is virtually irresponsible.
The heritage of the past is the seed that brings forth the harvest of the future.
Many years ago, hemp was grown everywhere and we don't know why. It's been so hard to get folks to see that it's the rope kind, not the dope kind. It's clean, it's organic, it's safe, don't panic. You can make anything from it. It's a miracle plant, there's nothing hemp can't do. We know you'll love it. The earth has a chance for survival. It's not just a fantasy. Get on board the hemp revival. Save a planet, plant a seed. Get on board the hemp revival. Save a planet, plant a seed.
Hemp, me say hemp seeds. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Hemp, me say hemp seeds. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. We want to eat them to keep us all healthy. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Put them in our recipes, put them in our oatmeal. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Hemp, me say hemp seeds. is what we all need. Hemp, me say hemp seeds. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Essential fatty acids and lots of protein. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Toasted, roasted, salted or dehulled. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Hemp, me say hemp seed. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Hemp, me say hemp seed. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Omega-3, omega-6 and GLA. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Make them into smoothies, make them into ice cream. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Hemp, me say hemp seed. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Hemp, me say hemp seed. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need.
The point is that hemp itself, having so many uses and being a miracle plant, is all about sustainability. And right now we have what in this world, and particularly in the United States, what I like to call the beast, which is the petroleum, the nuclear, the pesticide, the whole petrochemical, mining quagmire, the industries that are destroying Mother Nature and getting giant subsidies, tax breaks and everything at the same time. We need something sustainable. Obviously our economy is heading in a horrible direction. It's sustainable, it makes sense for the farmers, it makes sense for the environment. That's why I'm into the hemp movement, because I see all the alternatives, and I'd like to see the power get out from the hands of the beast and into the hands of the people.
I don't like the marijuana connection in anybody's mind. I raised 3 boys during the 60s, and I can tell you as a family we had trouble with marijuana, and I don't want anything to do with it. And I've got 13 grandchildren, and I don't want them to have anything to do with it. But I think industrial hemp is a crop that the farmers need. We need it from the environmental perspective. We need it to help stabilize greenhouse gases. We need to use it as a feedstock for biorefineries so we can reduce our dependence on imported oil and petroleum products. We just need it. It's a good crop, and we ought to get going, and General McCaffrey's going to figure that out.
Well, I think most farmers realize the difference between industrial hemp and marijuana. I mean, I'm a 67-year-old grandmother. I am not interested in promoting or legalizing drugs. Hemp is an industrial crop and should be under the regulations of the United States Department of Agriculture.
The Canadian farmers are raising this crop above a border that we've determined, and they ship the finished product, or they ship the raw product even, across our border, and it's processed in the United States.
I work in drug and alcohol a great deal, as I'm sure many of you are aware, in my prevention work, and it occurs to me somewhat hilarious in a way that if you started outlawing everything that looked like a drug, we'd have to outlaw powdered sugar, because you cannot tell the difference between powdered sugar and cocaine by looking at it.
Why is it that everything that is good for our bodies, our communities, and our planet called an alternative? An alternative to what? It's an alternative to deforestation at an unprecedented rate, extinction of species at an unprecedented rate. It's like we have to change our languaging and not allow them to call hemp the alternative. Hemp is the solution.
It's odd that in 30 countries around the world, including Canada and France and Germany and England, and all of these countries, including Russia, they're able to grow industrial hemp, and here we're relegated to these test crops, like in Kentucky. So it's odd, land of the free and the home of the brave, that we may be brave, but we sure aren't free.
I don't think this is sending a mixed message to our young people because, frankly, I think our young people are smarter. And I think our young people can easily discern the difference. Industrial hemp gets made into shirts, pants, surfline clothes, into even surfboards. They'd probably be awesome surfboards out of industrial hemp. They know the difference. It's the parents and maybe the bureaucracy that doesn't know. And I'd say, hey, get smart, guys. Industrial hemp is not a drug. And don't try to pawn it off as a drug and try to claim that we're misleading the youth. The youth know better. It's you guys that don't.
1,960 square foot split level adobe house, which has 60% of its volume made from industrial hemp. We have hempcrete blocks and panels, which were made with a formula originating from France. Mix it up and pour it in a form, and you have a strong, cohesive building block. We also have hemp fiber used in our stucco mix, replacing the nylon filaments that keep the surface from cracking. We used hemp for our insulation. We have hemp shingles made in Canada, guaranteed for 50 years. They look just like cedar shake shingles, and they're easy to work with and very strong. I'm happy with this plant. I'm happy with what we're doing, and look forward to continuing despite the objections of people that have no knowledge, connection, or interest in the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation and Indian country in general.
There was a reason that the powers that be put that plant here, and to eradicate it from all over the planet is not exactly what the big guy had in mind, if you know what I mean. I mean, he puts it in there, and why should we take it out? We should use it for what it's worth. If you don't want to use it, that's your business, but if it is a useful product that grows organically out of the soil, check it out.
You know, there's a really good argument that one could make without ever growing any hemp in Kentucky, any industrial hemp in Kentucky. But if you aerial seeded the seed that you bought from Europe, let's say you just went to Europe and bought a grocery bag full of industrial hemp, and you took a helicopter and you threw it, or you flew it through the river bottoms of eastern Kentucky, where the DEA says that there's lots of illegal marijuana growing. Let's say you did that, and you allow that industrial grade to grow all by its own, without any farmer growing it culturally, okay? And that pollinates that illegal trade. Well, let's say that one generation passes. The illegal grower automatically has half the potency. In another generation, he has half of that half. So that in 3 generations, you can basically eliminate the outdoor illegal marijuana trade just by aerial seeding it.
Society is concerned with global warming and carbon emissions. Buildings and building construction account for more than half of all CO2 emissions. If we are to reduce emissions, we need to make buildings energy efficient, but we also need to use low-energy methods of achieving this. Natural materials not only help to make buildings energy efficient, but also they can make buildings healthier and function better. Natural materials generally have a much lower carbon footprint than conventional building materials. Most conventional materials consume a great deal of fossil fuel energy to produce and therefore contribute to CO2 emissions.
We've been trying to find a method of building that's low carbon and energy efficient, simple and affordable, that uses natural materials. Hemp and lime mixed together seems to answer all of those needs. This technique of construction was developed in France about 10 years ago and used to a small extent there, but actually didn't really take off for some reason. We found out about the technology, did our own research. A number of people came together in the UK and we decided it was something that was commercially viable, and it's taken off to a large extent here. There are probably about 50 hempcrete buildings all over the UK, ranging from a brewery warehouse, a £20 million project, down to individual houses and even people's sort of summer houses in their garden. I mean, it's been used for all sorts of different forms of construction. Well, this building, apart from the fact that it's a small house that's for my father to live in, it's a demonstration of this technique so that we can prove that it works, we can show it to other people and to other architects, other professionals and builders, so that if you want to convince them of the technique, they can actually come along and have a look at it and see it in the flesh.
It's quite unique, hasn't been done before in Northern Ireland. So this is us able to test both the processing and the complications and detailing on a building which is for ourselves. The hemp research project was funded by DEFRA to look into hemp, which is a crop, being used as a natural insulation, but here cast with hemp. So this has led to a publication. A book has just recently been published by ourselves and other co-writers. So this is quite timely that this building is now happening exactly at this point. And in fact, we'll probably be even reviewing some of the details that are in that book, because we very much have a hands-on understanding of using the material now. We started the superstructure, that's the work above ground, 4 months ago. We started off with quite traditional footings, a normal strip footing around the building, and brought it up in block work up to subfloor level, unavoidably using cement, which we had to do and be pragmatic about that. And then we started the primary structure, and what we decided to do was to start off actually with the principal, the posts and the beams holding the roof structure, to end up with a sheltered framework. And that was followed by the stud work around the perimeter, which is then being cast around with the hemp and lime. The hemp needs a sort of rethinking in terms of what we call traditional building construction, because we've been using a cavity block construction for the last century really, and a lot of plastics in buildings. So this is a monolithic construction, and the insulation properties of the hemp are both that it's a good insulant but also has thermal mass. Monolithic means that it's one material right through. It does have a stud wall buried in the middle of it, but it isn't layers of separate materials. So even timber frame construction, which is favoured by a lot of people who are trying to improve insulation, has too many layers and too many different processes, and that's what we're trying to reduce. This is the primary structure carrying the roof load. That's Douglas fir, locally sourced, and that was constructed at the beginning of the process. Here you can see the tail end of the shuttering, which is yet to be removed, and this section, it has been taken away. This is cast just a few days ago and still soft to the touch but firm. You can see it's solid enough. This is the stud wall that's sitting in the middle of that 300 thick lime casting, so that's permanent with some noggings, cross noggings for stiffness. And here we're back to a section that's not finished being cast yet. This is the base of the posts here with a rigid fixing, so we got rigidity in the whole building frame from the start, sitting on its own padstone and the subfloor level there below. This is the radon barrier coming up, tucked into the DPC, and we have the electrics that we had to put this ducting in ahead of the hemp being cast. Here we have one of the electric sockets which we've cast into the wall because it wouldn't be practical to try and chase this material, so you've got to cast them in at the time. And then here we've got the window reveal, which is lined with the Heraclith board, which is a permanent shutter, and that would stay in place.
The main thing that architects want to know about this is how well does it work from a thermal point of view. So a 300mm thick wall like the one we're building here will provide good enough insulation to meet Part L of the building regulations, depending on whether you're in Northern Ireland or England.